Hey everyone, this is Zeeebo and welcome to this AFK journey video. So in this AFK journey video, we're going to do updated best bossing teams against the Spider Wasteland Grim Executioner. But before we begin, just a disclaimer, for those of you guys who are not very sure in terms of why certain units might work for other people but not for you, there is a high chance because some of these players, they might have this superiority buff. So this buff allows your Supreme Plus unit to get an additional damage boost when their EX weapon reaches level 15. So this is where you get your massive difference in terms of the damage. So right here we have Ward here with the best damage team in terms of the overall damage over here. But all the units are above EX 15 at the very least, right? So I have the exact same team, but it doesn't do as much. Still very impressive damage, but the damage from Bonnie as well as Alsa is a lot lower because I don't have that superiority buff, which gives me that damage amplification on my prime carriers or my damage dealers with the lower EX weapon levels itself. So yeah, this is one of the key reasons why there might be some difference in terms of the final damage output. But these teams that we're going to share today, they are done by Yapella, right? So they are confirmed, tested, and I also tried the teams myself, and they are confirmed to be the best damage teams against this boss. So one thing about this boss over here, it is a magical damage centric boss based on the ability, which we'll run through later, and that's why you will notice more magical damage dealers compared to the physical side. So without further ado, let's go into the battle itself, starting off with the very first team, which is the light bearer team right here. So I wouldn't say it's a light bearer team, it's more like using the light bearer factional talent together with a whole bunch of magical damage dealers while having Odie as your hyper carry. So for this one, for this boss itself, right, one thing that you guys might realize by now is that a lot of the top damage dealers, they are magical centric because the boss right here has this ability to just reduce damage taken from physical damage by 99%. So what this means is that you basically don't want to run any physical unit because physical units are not going to do any damage to the boss, and that's why most of the good units, they are on the magical damage side. So for the rest of the skills itself, I'm not going to run through too much because I have talked about this boss quite a few times. So right now, let's talk about the units, why we are running this unit combination right here, and why certain units are on certain tiles and what are the different substitutes. So first of all, starting off with the main carry, Odie will be the main damage dealer. Odie is one of and still one of the best single target damage dealer around, and has been a really good bossing unit, has been a really good battle drill unit from the start to the present. So this unit over here will be your prime carrier behind Hugin right here. So Odie is not gonna move from his spot in most cases because this unit has a very long attack range. So this means that Odie will be able to stand behind Hugin to permanently benefit from the mechanized bond right here. So this gives you maximum attack percentage while having Hugin to buff up the whole team with the ultimate as well as the rest of the other abilities. So that's Hugin as well as the Odie positioning. Now we have Cassidy right here. So Cassidy has always been a really decent magical damage dealer against all the different bosses in the battle drill side. So Cassidy has also come in and out for certain Dream Realm teams because of her insane magical damage through her first skill, her second skill, and also the ability for her to actually debuff the enemy with the enhanced force over here for your other magical dealers to do more damage. So this is Cassidy, one of the best magical damage dealer in the light bearer faction. So for the last slot for the light bearer side, we are running Morale. So for Morale slot, I think Morale as a unit is also a pretty decent damage dealer here. And if you take a look at all the available light bearer factional teams or light bearer units over here, you are not left with a lot of good magical damage dealers. So let's say if you don't have morale built up, you can actually use Sonya over here to buff up your prime carriers so that your prime carriers actually hit harder. So if that's the case, you might want to reposition your Hugin a little bit so that you will be able to ensure that Sonya's buff will fall on both your prime carriers right here. So this is one way. And then if you don't have morale, you can also use Melee as well, because Melee will be able to do true damage. So the boss ability reduces damage from physical side. So true damage might still be able to hurt the boss a little bit for you to hit a little bit harder. Another unit you can use, right, in the place of Morale would be Sinbad. So I don't think Sinbad's a good unit as a damage dealer in this boss, but if you need him to activate your factional talent, so you are able to proc your prime carrier buff and also give you a little bit more debuff for this team to work, then you can try to use him. But in most cases, you want to use your magical damage dealers for that maximum magical damage. And then for the very last lot, we are using Carolina. So Carolina is one of the better magical damage dealers around, with the ability to reduce magical defense over here. So with the ability to reduce magical defense, you are able to amp up the damage of other units like Odie, as well as your Cassidy, as well as your Muriel in the team itself, as well as increasing her own damage right here. So overall, Carolina is there as an additional damage source, but more importantly for her debuff to amplify the damage of the other magical damage dealers. So at the start of battle, we will be able to summon for Hogan. So I think right now Light Bearer might not be the best factional talent in terms of the damage dealing side, because Hogan is not actually like a massive buff to damage to your prime carriers or damage, but the units that are within a Light Bearer faction, they are pretty decent for these bossing purposes. That's why we are using this team setup for this boss right here. Yeah, so this is the Light Bearer factional team with Odie as well as Carolina in the mix. So this is team number 1. For Carolina's case, I think if you don't have Carolina, any other magical damage dealer or any other amplification for your carries will be a good sort of substitute for Carolina in the team. So this is the damage. As you guys can see, Cassidy as well as Odie doing some of the most damage over here. Carolina also doing pretty decent. So I think if you take a look at this, my Carolina being a little bit stronger could actually replace my Cassidy's position. So the difference is mainly due to the EX weapon levels itself. So Morale's there just for that additional damage from the magical damage side, as well as your factional talent activation. So this is the very first team. This is the first damage distribution. So this team consists of Lily May together with Brian being the prime damage dealers, and we have the Wilders factional talent upgraded. So this is useful for those of you guys who have your Wilders upgraded, and you can use all these units right here. So the key units would be our dear Lily May together with Brian right here for their insane single target damage. But let's say if you don't have Brian built up, another magical damage dealer you can use would probably be either your Arden or your Iron in this case, because I think Iron and Arden, they are like more commonly invested Wilders unit. So if your Brian's not that built up, right? If you don't have your Brian at a really high tier, then consider using your much stronger magical damage dealer in Brian's slot to be used as your prime carrier. So that is the recommendation for the substitute. And then we have Parisa. So Parisa is also a pretty decent magical damage dealer, but in this team itself, Parisa actually has also the additional benefit to increase the attack speed and normal attack damage of Brian right here. So Brian's a pretty normal attack damage reliant unit, and the faster Brian hits, the more damage he can stack up with his abilities. So that's why buffing up Brian with Parisa is insanely good. So for that unit in the middle just now, it was actually our dear Valka. So Valka is used for the same reason that Parisa is used, for that attack boost for your Lily May as well as your Brian to hit harder. So for those of you guys who are wondering why Brian benefits from more attack speed, so if we go into the second skill right here, Brian's normal attack and skills deals damage 2 times, absorbing the target's attack energy, right? So this means that if you have more attack speed, the more normal attacks you perform, the more damage you can do with this part of the passive in terms of Brian's ability. So that's why attack speed makes Brian a little bit better in terms of damage dealing, and that's why we're using Valka. So Valka also has the additional benefit of being a magical defense debuffer with the magic charm ability. So let's say if you don't have Valka, another good unit you can use in this slot would probably be our dear Sonya over here for the prime carrier buff, like I mentioned before. So if that's the case, you want to reposition your Parisa a little bit to the right so that it doesn't get that prime carrier buff from, I mean, doesn't get that Sonya buff from this positioning. So this will be it. Other positioning or other unit includes other debuffers or other buffers, like I mentioned previously. So Satrana's in the team because Satrana is one of those units that increases like the whole team's magical damage with her spark ability right here. So this Ignite Passion allows you to do additional damage on the magical damage side, and she's quite a decent frontliner, being able to stand on the front line, perform her ultimate, and be inbound to damage itself. So pretty good frontliner with that additional damage buff. But in her slot, you can use other really good magical damage dealers or other buffers as well. So this will be the wildest factional team. So let's put in our Valka over here. We have Parisa, so Parisa can also attack a little bit faster. So without further ado, let's showcase this team's run. So we just go run the battle at 3 times because yeah, you guys can actually run the battle in slow-mo yourself. We just want to showcase how this team works as well as where your magical damage is coming from. So you can see the fire around all your units. That is because that is the Ignite Passion ability from Satrana for that additional DOT, the damage over time from Satrana itself. Then the attack speed buff from our Parisa will fall on Bryon because they're just beside each other. And then your Bryon's going to hit pretty hard together with Lily May being your secondary or your main single target damage dealer right here. You are able to do quite a bit against the boss with this team setup. Okay, so this team would probably be what I call weaker compared to the previous team because in terms of the bossing component, this team's units, they are not as hard hitting compared to the Odie side because Odie did way more here. So this team will probably be the weakest one out of the 3. Right, in terms of the top 3 positioning. Okay, so this is the strongest team in terms of the total damage output. So this one runs the Celestial-Hypogean Factional talent. So for this one, you will need the twins. You will need the Taylin as well as Reina for this, because Reina is there for Taylin to sort of heal up from the damage dealt so that she's able to continuously channel her ultimate for maximum damage output as well as heal the rest of the team. Now we have twins for some of the best buffs in the game with the ability to give control immunity to our Taylin as well as increase haste to the rest of the other allies. So we have Alsa as well as Bonnie right here. So we use Alsa as the prime carrier because Alsa is a unit that wants to spam her ultimate, and she's able to get off her ultimate really fast for all the good chaos revelation buff right here. And on top of that is if Elsa is able to spam her ultimate, you will be able to actually activate even more frostball spell over here to do a lot of damage against the boss from the artifact itself. So that's why we're using Elsa in this team. And then we have Bonnie over here for additional magical damage as well as the buffs for the rest of the team through her Supreme Plus skill right here. So this is actually really good because you increase the damage of Taylin tremendously, making this team the strongest team in terms of damage against the boss. So without further ado, let's start the battle. Okay, so Chaos Revelation is also theoretically the best damage factional talent because Chaos Revelation will be able to give that damage buff to the allies as well as the prime carrier from the abilities itself. So I'll say Wilders as well as the Celestial-Hypogean factional talents, they are the best for damage purposes. But for this boss specifically, I think the Light Bearer side as well as Odie, they are some of the better units to do damage against this boss. So that's why these are the different good teams over here, and you kind of want to build the best team based on the units you have. So for those of you guys who don't have all the units in today's video, you can actually think of what is the role for the different units you're trying to replace and then try to slot in the stronger units into the team for you to do more damage over here. So yep, that's pretty much it for this video. So for this boss over here, I think due to that superiority buff, your best teams as well as best performing units will be different because of the massive difference with your exclusive equipment levels itself. So yep, do take note of that, and thank you very much for tuning in. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more, and do visit your Palace Discord for you to get your information on all these different infographics, and I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys!